What are we cooking for Nan and Pa today? What are you and Dad cooking for Nan and Pa?
We're cooking an Asian dish, honey chili chicken.
Yep.
And
Wow.
the ingredients are spring onion, bok choy, coriander, ginger, garlic, chilli, lemongrass, spinach, lime and capsicum.
In my day, when I was about your age, a lot of those things I wouldn't have heard about.
Sunday roast.
When James's grandfather was growing up, his family had never seen or heard of most of these ingredients.
When I was your age, we mostly ate mutton. My dad worked on a sheep station and we had mutton for breakfast, dinner and supper. With the mutton, with our meal, we always had plenty of bread and plenty of tea.
I can remember most meals that I had as a lad was consisted of chop, lamb griller, and veggies, chopping 3 veggies. And we'd have mashed potato, we'd have peas, beans and carrots. But there was nothing like we've got here today. It was a little bit different. Of a Saturday, Nan would cook a leg of lamb for us as a bit of a change. A leg of lamb and baked veggies. That was a Saturday treat. Loved it. Everybody loved a baked dinner.
What Australians eat has changed a lot over time. The first Australians ate animals and plants that belonged to this land and generally took only what they needed to eat. They tried to leave enough for other people and for later seasons. If necessary, they would move around their land so they didn't use up all the food in one area. New meats, killed pork and corned beef, arrived when Europeans came to Australia. If you were lucky, they may have been served with some boiled cabbage. There was no refrigeration, so people used salt to preserve the meat. Later, mutton, which is the meat from older sheep, became a common food because sheep adapted well to living in Australia. They were bred for their wool, which was sold to markets in England. People didn't eat many vegetables as they were expensive. It takes time for them to grow, and you need lots of workers to plant and care for them. And workers were too busy building new roads and towns to grow vegetables. So we became a nation of meat eaters, especially of beef, pork and mutton.
With baked veggies.
When Victor was a boy in the 1940s, there was another sort of meat that he remembers eating.
We often ate rabbit because they were plentiful, it was cheap. We didn't have any money, our people didn't have any money. My brothers and I were able to go out and trap them and skin them and prepare them for my mother to cook.
Rabbits were a serious problem for many farmers, but for a lot of families like Victor's, it was often the only meat they could afford.
It tasted very, very nice. It's a bit like chicken.
Not that Victor had chicken very often when he was a boy.
Chicken was very rarely on our menu, perhaps twice a year, because chooks were very important for laying eggs, and we didn't want to kill something that provided our egg supply.
Eggs and chicken meat were expensive in the 1940s, but from the 1950s most chickens were taken out of yards and grew up in egg-producing factories. They were kept in tiny wire cages and fed specially blended foods. Their eggs rolled onto a conveyor belt, ready to be graded into sizes, boxed and sent off to supermarkets. Chickens raised for their meat were sent off to processing and packaging factories. A lot more chickens and eggs were produced this way, so they could be sold more cheaply. So these days, Victor can hunt whenever he likes. In fact, today he'll be eating honey chili chicken, an Asian dish that James and John are cooking the Asian way, in a wok. What we eat and how we cook have been influenced by the many migrant groups that have come to Australia. A lot of Chinese people arrived during the gold rushes in the 1800s. When the gold ran out, they had to find new jobs. Many became vegetable growers, door to door selling their produce. There were others who became cooks, and some opened restaurants, but most Australians only wanted to eat English food. Eating Chinese food in Chinese restaurants didn't really become popular until after the 1950s. That's when our population grew very quickly, as lots of migrants from countries all over Europe came here. Many earned good wages, so they could afford to go out to eat at a restaurant sometimes. These new Australians also wanted to try new food, so many local Chinese people saw an opportunity and opened restaurants which served Chinese food. But the new arrivals also wanted to eat foods from their European homelands, so a wide range of restaurants opened. By the 1980s, it was not unusual for both mum and to go out to work. With less time to prepare food, more families went out for a meal, and they liked to try new tastes. Air travel had also become much cheaper, so a lot of Australians were travelling overseas, especially to Asian countries. They experienced dishes they had never tried before, and they liked them. They wanted to have these foods in Australia. There were also new migrants arriving. The choice of foods available for Australians just keeps growing. But when Victor was a boy, he, like most Australian children, never went to a restaurant, not even as a special treat. For Victor, a special treat was having ice. Ice in a glass of lemonade.
Who wants some of this?
No, thank you.
Oh, thanks, James. All the more for me, mate.
Over time, migrants, techie and travel have changed what we eat.
Better than a bit of rabbit, isn't it?
Got a little bit of rabbit. Beats mutton chops all the time, Johnny.
What might we be eating in the future?
What's the verdict? Any good?
You like it?
Yep.
Yep.